He left her at the church on their wedding day after what she did. Emily clutched the bouquet of white flowers with trembling hands as she awaited the most important moment of her life. All the guests were silent in the century-old St. Paul Church in Denver, waiting for her and Michael to say the I do that would forever seal the love they had built over 5 years. That's when the side door of the church slowly opened. A grey-haired woman, dressed in simple yet elegant clothes, walked in slowly. Michael turned his head toward the woman, and his expression changed completely. His face turned as pale as paper, his eyes widened, and he began visibly shaking. "This can't be," he murmured, letting go of Emily's hands in the same instant. "Michael, what's wrong?" she whispered, confused and frightened. But he had already turned around and bolted down the central aisle of the church, past all the stunned guests. Emily tried to run after him, but her long dress and veil tangled around her feet, causing her to trip and fall to her knees right in front of the altar. Father Thomas, a man nearly 70 years old who had baptized Emily, tried to help her up as murmurs from the guests began filling the air. "Calm down, my dear. Let's take a deep breath," he said softly. But Emily couldn't stop crying. Hot tears streamed down her face as she stared at the door where Michael had disappeared. His mother, Mrs. Barbara, stood in the front pew shouting, "I always knew this girl was hiding something. I always thought it was strange how she dodged questions about her family." Emily's best friend, Jennifer, rushed to her side. "Emily, get up. Let's get out of here," she said, holding the bride's arm. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, but Emily didn't want to leave. She wanted to understand what had happened. Who was that woman, and why did Michael react like that when he saw her? She turned to look for the woman, but she had vanished too. "Jennifer, did you see where she went? The woman who came in?" "What woman?" "I didn't see anyone come in," her friend replied, confused. Other guests began gathering around. Aunt Catherine, Emily's mother's sister, approached with tears in her eyes. "My dear, what on earth happened here?" Emily didn't know what to say. She was just as bewildered as everyone else. Michael's best man, Jason, who had been his closest friend since childhood, stepped forward with a grim expression. "Emily, I need to tell you something," he said, glancing around as if to make sure no one else was listening. "Michael's been asking me strange questions about you for weeks." "What kind of questions?" she asked, still trying to wipe away the tears that wouldn't stop falling. "He wanted to know if you'd told me anything about financial trouble, about selling something. I said I didn't know because I really didn't. But he seemed really worried." Emily's heart raced. How could Michael know about Grandma Grace's house? She had been so careful, lying to everyone by saying the house was still in the family, that Grandma Grace had just moved to a retirement home. Jennifer looked at her with a strange expression. "Emily, is there something you're not telling us?" Just then, Michael's cousin, Megan, who worked as a clerk at a records office, approached the group. "Guys, I didn't want to say anything, but..." She hesitated, glancing at Emily. "Last week, an anonymous envelope arrived at my office with copies of documents for the sale of a house." The saleswoman's name was Emily Wilson Grant. The silence that followed was deafening. All eyes turned to Emily, who felt as if the ground were disappearing beneath her feet. "Emily, is this true?" asked Jennifer, incredulous. I can explain," she stammered, "but it's not what you're thinking." Mrs. Barbara, Michael's mother, walked toward them, her face red with anger. "Explain? What explanation could there possibly be for deceiving my son all this time? Do you think I'm a fool? This girl sold property behind our backs and still had the nerve to let us pay for the wedding." "Mrs. Barbara, please, let me explain," Emily pleaded. "There's nothing to explain. My son did the right thing by running away. A woman who starts a marriage with lies doesn't deserve to stand by his side." Father Thomas intervened once more. "Let's all calm down. This is God's house, a place for understanding, not judgment," he said firmly. "Emily, my child, if you'd like to talk, I'll be in the sacristy. And all of you, please give the girl some space." Emily nodded, still trembling. She needed to get out of there, but first she had to find Michael, too. She had to explain everything, to share the truth she'd been hiding for over a year. "Jennifer, can you take me to look for Michael? He must be in the parking lot." The two left the church under the curious and worried gazes of all the guests. Outside, the December sun was strong, a stark contrast to the gloom that had settled inside the church. In the parking lot, Michael's car, a black Camry he'd bought used the year before, was still there. "He couldn't have gone far," Jennifer said. "Let's look around the area." They walked through Highland Park, known for its steep streets and old houses. Emily tried to think of where Michael might have gone. She knew the places he frequented when he needed to be alone to think. "Let's go to Carmel Square," she suggested. "He always went there when he was worried about something." As they walked, Jennifer couldn't help but ask questions. "Emily, for heaven's sake, tell me what happened. Why did you sell a house in secret? And what house was it?" Emily took a deep breath. She knew the time would come to tell someone the truth, but she never imagined it would be like this, on her wedding day, running through the streets of Denver in a tear-stained wedding dress. "It was my Grandma Grace's house," she began. "Do you remember her?" "Of course I do. That sweet little grandma who always made sweet bread when we visited her house as kids." "That's right. She passed away 2 years ago, remember? And she left the house to me in her will." "Yes, I remember, but why did you sell it?" Emily stopped walking and leaned against the low wall of an old house. "Because of my father, Jennifer. You know he's had health problems for over a year. What you don't know is that they're much more serious than I've let on." Jennifer sat beside her, waiting for her to continue. "My father has a heart condition that requires surgery, a surgery that costs over $100,000. His insurance wouldn't cover it because they said it was a pre-existing condition." "My God, Emily, why didn't you ever tell us?" "Because I was ashamed," she answered, her voice breaking. "Ashamed to ask for help. Ashamed I couldn't handle it on my own. My father has always been a proud man, worked his whole life as a mechanic to support us after my mother passed. He didn't want anyone to know about his situation. But selling your grandmother's house? It was the only way out I could find. I tried everything, Jennifer. I applied for bank loans, looked into financing, searched for government programs. Nothing worked. And time was passing. The doctor said he couldn't wait much longer." Jennifer hugged her, finally understanding the situation. "What about Michael? You never told him anything?" "No. I didn't want him to feel obligated to help, you know. We were still dating, not married. It didn't seem fair to put that weight on his shoulders." "But Emily, you'd been together for years. He loves you. I'm sure he would have helped." "I know that now," Emily sighed. "But back then I was so desperate, so confused. All I could think about was saving my father." They kept walking until they reached Carmel Square. It was a small place with a few benches under leafy trees and an old chapel in the center. Emily looked around but didn't see Michael anywhere. "He's not here," she murmured, disappointed. That's when they heard a familiar voice coming from behind the chapel. "Emily? Is that you?" They turned and saw Chloe, Michael's younger sister, walking toward them. Chloe was 23 and had always been very close to her brother. "Chloe, have you seen Michael?" Emily asked immediately. "Yes, I have. He rushed by here about 20 minutes ago. He was really upset. Didn't even stop to talk to me properly." "Where did he go?" "I think he went to Mrs. Grace's house." Emily felt her blood run cold. "Mrs. Grace? Which Mrs. Grace?" "An older woman who lives near Graceland Cemetery. He mentioned her name, said something about needing to understand what was going on." Emily's world collapsed at that moment. The Mrs. Grace Chloe was talking about could only be the true owner of the house she had sold. But how did Michael know about her? And why had he run from the church when he saw her? "Jennifer, we need to go there," Emily said urgently. "But Emily, you're in your wedding dress. You can't walk around like this." "I don't care. I need to find Michael and explain everything. I have to fix this." Chloe, who still didn't fully understand what was happening, offered to help. "Do you want me to come with you? I can call a taxi." "Please," Emily agreed. While they waited for the taxi, Chloe shared more details about her encounter with Michael. "He was acting really strange, Emily. He kept saying something about being deceived, about lies. He said he couldn't believe you'd done that." "Done what?" Emily asked, though she suspected the answer. I'm not sure, but he seemed really hurt. The taxi arrived and the three got in. Emily gave the address she vaguely remembered in the Riverside neighborhood. During the ride, she tried to gather her thoughts. She needed to find a way to explain to Michael that she'd sold the house for a noble cause, not out of greed or irresponsibility. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. When they reached the neighborhood, they asked the driver to wait and began asking residents about a Mrs. Grace who had recently bought a house. "Are you talking about the Mrs. Grace who lives in the blue house on the corner?" asked a neighbor, watering her plants. "That must be her," Emily replied. "Well, there's a young man in a suit at her house. He got there a while ago, really upset, looked like he'd been crying." Emily's heart raced. It had to be Michael. They headed to the blue house, a simple but well-kept building with a small garden out front. Emily knocked on the door, her hands trembling. After a few seconds, the same woman who had appeared at the church opened the door. She was about 70, with graying hair pulled into a bun and striking blue eyes. "You must be Emily," she said, her voice soft but serious. "Yes, it's me. Are you Mrs. Grace?" "I am. And I imagine you're looking for Michael. Is he here?" "Yes, he is. Come in, we need to talk." Emily stepped into the house, followed by Jennifer and Chloe. The interior was simple but cozy, with well-preserved antique furniture and plenty of plants. Michael was sitting on the living room couch, his head in his hands. When he saw Emily, he looked up, his eyes red from crying. "Michael," she began, but he interrupted her. "Emily, how could you do this? How could you sell Mrs. Grace's house without telling me?" "Let me explain to both of you," Mrs. Grace interjected, motioning for everyone to sit. "This situation is more complicated than it seems." She served water for everyone and sat in the armchair across from the couch. "Emily, dear, first I want you to know that I'm not angry with you. I completely understand why you did what you did." "You understand?" Emily asked, surprised. "Of course I do. You sold my house to save your father's life. Any daughter would have done the same." Michael looked confused between them. "Wait a minute. What do you mean, to save her father's life? Emily, what's this about?" Mrs. Grace looked at Emily tenderly. "You haven't told him yet." "I didn't have time," Emily replied, tears in her eyes. "Everything happened so fast." "Then I'll tell him," Mrs. Grace said. "Michael, Emily sold my house because her father needs a very expensive surgery, a surgery that could save his life." Michael fell silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "Emily, why didn't you ever tell me this?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Because I was afraid," she answered, finally meeting his eyes. "Afraid you'd feel obligated to help me, afraid you'd see me as a burden, afraid it would ruin our relationship. But Emily, I love you. I would have helped no matter what." "I know that now, but at the time, I was so desperate, so scared. All I could think about was saving my father." Mrs. Grace cleared her throat lightly, drawing their attention. "Kids, there's still a part of the story you don't know." "What do you mean?" Michael asked. "Michael, do you remember when you were little and your godmother Grace used to visit you?" Michael's eyes widened. "Godmother Grace? You're my godmother Grace?" "Yes, my dear. I'm your paternal grandmother's younger sister. I lost touch with the family after I moved to Chicago when you were little. But why are you here? I came back to Denver 3 years ago to take care of my mother, who passed away last year. That's when I bought this house. Actually, when Grace, Emily's grandmother, listed the house for sale through a realtor, I didn't know she was the granddaughter of my old neighbor and friend." Emily was confused. "You knew my grandmother?" "Yes, dear. Your grandmother, Grace Sullivan, was my neighbor and dear friend for over 40 years. We both lived on the same street in the Holy Family District. When she passed, I was heartbroken. I couldn't attend the funeral. I was in Chicago taking care of my mother at the time." The room fell completely silent. Everyone was trying to process this unexpected revelation. "So you two," Chloe began. "That's right," Mrs. Grace finished. "Fate brought my friend's granddaughter to sell her house to the godmother of the man she loves." Michael ran a hand through his hair, still in disbelief. But how did you figure out who Emily was? It was when I received the sale documents. I saw her full name, Emily Sullivan Grant. Sullivan was my friend Grace's last name. I started to suspect, but I confirmed it when I saw an old photo of your grandmother among the papers. It was identical to one I had of my friend. And how did you find out about my father's surgery? Asked Emily. Oh, that was easier. I looked for information about you in the neighborhood where your grandmother lived. The longtime neighbors told me about your father's situation, and I also found out you were engaged to a young man named Michael. Mrs. Grace smiled slightly. That's when I started suspecting it might be my godson. I decided to investigate a little more and discovered that yes, it was him. You two were destined to cross paths with me in the middle of all this. Michael shook his head, still trying to make sense of everything. So you went to the church on purpose? Yes, I did. I wanted to see if you were truly good people, if your love was real. I wanted to know if Michael would be able to forgive Emily when he learned the truth, and if Emily would be able to fight for her love. Emily looked at Michael with hope. So, Michael, can you forgive me? Michael stayed silent for a long time. Emily could see he was wrestling with himself, trying to process everything he'd just learned. Emily, I'm not angry because you sold the house, he finally said. I'm sad because you didn't trust me, because you thought I wouldn't want to help. I know, Michael. It was my mistake, but I was so scared, so alone. You're never alone, Emily. Never. We're a couple. We face problems together. Tears began rolling down Emily's face. Do you still love me? Michael got up from the couch and went to her, kneeling in front of the chair where she sat. I love you more than anything, Emily, and I admire you even more now, knowing you were willing to give up everything to save your father. He held her hands in his. But promise me that from now on we'll talk about everything, that you'll trust me. I promise, she whispered. I promise with all my heart. Mrs. Grace stood up, moved by the scene. Now I'm sure you two are perfect for each other, she said, smiling. And I have a proposal for both of you. What proposal? They asked at the same time. I want to give the house back to you, Emily. What do you mean? She asked, stunned. I don't need this house. I bought it because I liked it and because it reminded me of my friend Grace. But now that I know it's her house, your inheritance, I want you to have it back. But Mrs. Grace, I can't accept this. You paid for the house, and it was money well spent. It helped save a man's life. Your grandmother would be proud to know her house served such a noble purpose. Michael squeezed Emily's hands tighter. Mrs. Grace, that's incredibly generous of you, but... No buts, she interrupted. But I have one condition. What is it? Asked Emily. I want you two to get married. Today. Today? They all exclaimed together. Yes, today. Go back to the church, gather the guests who are still there, and finish what you started. Emily looked at Michael. Do you want to? After everything that happened? I want to marry you today, tomorrow, and every day of my life, he answered, kissing her hands. Jennifer, who had stayed quiet the whole time, finally spoke. Guys, this is beautiful and all, but have you seen the time? It's almost 5 in the afternoon. The church must be empty. Chloe grabbed her phone. Let me call my mom and see if anyone's still there. She dialed the number and put it on speaker. Mom, is anyone still at the church? What do you mean everyone went to the reception hall? Oh, you all thought the wedding might still happen. Okay, we're on our way. She hung up and looked at the others. My mom said almost all the guests went to the reception hall thinking the wedding would happen later. They're there waiting for you. Really? Asked Emily, emotional. Really? Seems like no one wanted to give up on you. Mrs. Grace clapped her hands. Then it's settled. We're going to the church. But Mrs. Grace, you don't have to... Of course I do. I'm the groom's godmother, and now I'm the bride's godmother too. I wouldn't miss this wedding for anything in the world. The journey back was completely different from the way there. Now there was hope in the air, there was love, there was certainty that everything would work out. Emily held Michael's hand in the back of the taxi, and he couldn't stop looking at her. Emily? Yes? How's your father? Did he manage to get the surgery? Yes, he did. It was 6 months ago. He's recovering well, thank God. Why didn't you ever tell me about this afterward? Because I didn't know how to explain where the money came from, I ended up telling everyone he got it through Medicare that a last-minute spot opened up. Michael shook his head. You went through all that alone. Not alone. My father always knew about the sacrifice I made for him. He wanted me to tell you, but I always made up an excuse. And now, will you take me to meet him? Of course. He's eager to get to know the man his daughter chose to marry better. When they arrived at the church, they saw that there were still people there. Father Thomas was at the front of the church, talking to some family members. "Father Thomas," Emily called, stepping out of the taxi. The priest turned and smiled when he saw them. "Emily, my dear." "Michael, I knew you'd come back." "You knew?" Michael asked. "Of course. 40 years in the priesthood have taught me to recognize true love. And what you two have is true love." Mrs. Grace approached the priest. "Father, can you marry them now?" "Of course, Mrs. Sorry, I don't know your name." "Grace. I'm Grace Sullivan, godmother to both of them." The priest smiled. "What a beautiful coincidence. Emily's grandmother was also named Grace." "She was my friend," Mrs. Grace said simply. "Ah, then this marriage was already blessed before it even began." They entered the church and saw about 50 people still there. When the guests saw the couple enter hand in hand, they began to applaud and cry with emotion. Mrs. Barbara, Michael's mother, rushed over to them. "My son, forgive me for judging Emily without knowing the whole story," she said, hugging them both. "Now that I know the truth, I can only say I'm proud to have such a brave daughter-in-law." Emily's father, Mr. Edward, who had arrived that afternoon, walked slowly toward them. He was visibly thinner and more fragile after the surgery, but his eyes shone with happiness. "My daughter," he said, his voice choked. "It's time for you to be happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world." Emily hugged him carefully, crying, "Dad, I love you so much. And I love you even more. And now I love Michael like a son too." Michael stepped forward and hugged them both. "Mr. Edward, I promise to take care of your daughter forever." "I know you will, my son. I always knew." Father Thomas called everyone to take their places. "Let's do this wedding properly now. Emily and Michael, are you ready?" "Ready," they answered together. The ceremony was simple, but infinitely more moving than the morning's attempt. When it came time for the vows, Emily asked to speak first. "Michael, I promise that from today on, I'll share all my joys and all my worries with you. I promise to always trust you, because I know you love me and want what's best for me. I promise to be your partner forever, in good times and bad." Michael wiped away a tear before speaking. "Emily, I promise to love and support you always, even when you feel you don't deserve it. I promise to be your safe harbor, your shoulder to lean on, your best friend. I promise we'll never face a problem alone because now we're a family." When the priest asked if they accepted each other as husband and wife, the two answered yes, with such certainty and emotion that there wasn't a single person in the church who wasn't crying. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." The kiss was long, sweet, and full of forgiveness, understanding, and true love. When they pulled apart, the guests' applause echoed through the century-old walls of the church. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. After the ceremony, everyone headed to the reception hall. On the way, Mrs. Grace pulled Emily and Michael aside for a private conversation. "Kids, I have one more surprise for you." "Another one?" Michael laughed. "Mrs. Grace, you've already done so much." "It's never too much when it comes to family. And you two are my family now." She pulled an envelope from her purse. Inside this envelope are the house documents. Everything has been transferred back to Emily's name. "Mrs. Grace," Emily began, but she interrupted. "Let me finish. Along with the house, there's also a savings account I opened with the leftover money from the sale. It's for you to start your married life without financial worries." Michael shook his head. "Godmother, this is too much. I can't accept it." "Yes, you can. And do you know why? Because you've given me back something I thought I'd lost forever." "What?" Emily asked. "A family. You've given me a family again." The three of them hugged, overcome with emotion. The reception was wonderful. All the tension from the morning had turned into pure joy. The guests couldn't stop talking about how it had been the most moving wedding story they'd ever witnessed. During the couple's first dance, Michael whispered in Emily's ear, "Do you know what I admire most about you?" "What?" "Your capacity to love. You were willing to give up everything for your father, and now I know you'd do the same for me." "And I would," she replied, "but now I don't have to do anything alone anymore, right?" "Never again. From today on, it's the two of us against the world." Later, during the speeches, Mrs. Grace asked to speak. "Everyone, I want to tell you a story about how destiny has mysterious ways of bringing loved ones together." She recounted the whole story: the sale of the house, the discovery of who Emily was, her friendship with Emily's grandmother, being Michael's godmother. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "And so," she said, raising her glass, "I propose a toast not just to Emily and Michael's love, but to the love that binds families, forgives mistakes, overcomes obstacles, and always, always finds a way to triumph." "Cheers!" everyone shouted in unison. Mr. Edward also asked to speak. "Everyone, I want to thank my daughter. She saved my life, literally, and she did it without a second thought, without hesitation. Emily, you're the pride of my life." He turned to Michael. "And Michael, my son, thank you for forgiving my daughter and for understanding that what she did was out of love. Take care of each other always." "We will, Mr. Edward," Michael promised. The evening continued with plenty of dancing, good food, and stories to tell for generations to come. Close to midnight, as the reception was winding down, Emily and Michael headed to the house that was now theirs again. "It feels like a dream," Emily said, looking at the familiar facade of the house where she'd spent so many childhood weekends with her grandmother. "If it's a dream, I don't want to wake up," Michael replied, carrying her over the threshold. Inside the house, they found a surprise. Mrs. Grace had decorated everything to welcome them. There were flowers everywhere, lit candles, and a note on the kitchen table. "Dear Emily and Michael, may you be very happy in this home that was built with love and will now shelter even more love. May you have many years of happiness, beautiful children, and good health to enjoy every moment together. With love, your godmother, Grace P.S. Emily, your grandma." "Grace appeared to me in a dream last night. She said she's proud of you and blesses this marriage. Believe it or not, she also mentioned there's a hidden treasure in the backyard, under the guava tree. Maybe it's worth checking out tomorrow." Emily and Michael looked at each other and laughed. "Do you think it's true, Auntie?" she asked. "After everything that happened today, I'd believe anything," he replied. "Let's check tomorrow. Today, I just want to stay here with you, in our home, soaking in the fact that we're husband and wife." "Husband and wife," Michael repeated, as if testing how the words sounded. "I like how that sounds. Me too." They kissed right there in the kitchen of the house that was now the beginning of their new life together. The next day, driven by curiosity, they went to investigate the clue about the treasure. Under the guava tree, there really was something buried. It wasn't gold or money, but something far more valuable. A box of letters Grandma Grace had written for Emily over the years, letters she'd never delivered because she thought they were just an old woman's ramblings. In the letters, Grandma Grace wrote about love, family, and the importance of trusting the people we love. In one of the last letters, she wrote, "My dear Emily, if you're reading this letter, you're already a grown woman and have likely faced some challenges in life. I want you to know I always believed you could overcome anything because you have a pure heart and a strong soul. But always remember, don't face problems alone. True love is when two people decide to face life together, sharing burdens and multiplying joys. This home has always been a place of love. May it continue to be with you and whomever you choose to love. With all my love, your Grandma Grace." Emily cried as she read the letter, and Michael comforted her. "Seems like your grandma knew you'd need to read this someday," he said. "Seems like she knew everything, huh? even that one day I'd marry you. Maybe grandmas have that special power to see the future. Or maybe it's just the power of love. 6 months after the wedding, Emily discovered she was pregnant. The news filled the whole family with joy. Mr. Edward, now fully recovered from his surgery, cried with emotion when he heard he'd be a grandfather. "I'll get to see my grandson grow up," he said, moved, "all thanks to my brave daughter." Mrs. Grace, who had become a constant presence in the couple's life, was radiant with the news. "I'll be an honorary grandma," she joked, "and I want to help with everything." During the pregnancy, she truly became a second mother to Emily, teaching her recipes, sharing baby stories, and giving priceless advice. When the baby arrived, a beautiful boy they named Edward Grace Grant, in honor of his grandfather and the two important Graces in the family. The emotion was overwhelming. "He has Emily's eyes and Michael's smile," Mrs. Grace said, cradling the baby. "And the name of the two greatest examples of love in our family," Emily added. Michael watched the scene. His wife, his son, his father-in-law who had become like a father to him, and the godmother who had become a grandmother to his child, and felt life couldn't be more complete. "You know what I think?" he said to Emily. "What?" "That sometimes life's problems are just disguises to lead us where we're meant to be." "How so?" "If you hadn't sold the house, we wouldn't have met Mrs. Grace. If I hadn't gotten angry that day, maybe we'd never have truly talked about our feelings. And if we hadn't gone through all of that, maybe we wouldn't appreciate what we have now so much," Emily added. "Exactly." 2 years later, they had a daughter, Grace Emily Grant, and 3 years after her, another boy, Michael Edward Grant. The house that had once been sold out of necessity became the home of a large and happy family. Sunday afternoons were always lively, with Mr. Edward telling stories to the grandchildren, Mrs. Grace teaching the children to cook, and Emily and Michael taking care of every detail to ensure that house remained a place of love. On one of those afternoons, as she watched the family gathered in the backyard under the guava tree, Emily remembered the day she thought her world had ended in the church. Now she knew it had actually been the day her real life began. "Michael," she called. "Hi, love." "Thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For forgiving me, for understanding, for fighting for our love even when I didn't believe it was worth it." Michael kissed her forehead. "Thank you for teaching me that true love is when you're willing to do anything for the person you love." "Even selling Grandma Grace's house," she teased. "Even forgiving the person who sold Grandma Grace's house," he teased back. And there, under the guava tree where a treasure of love letters had once been buried, they sealed once more the commitment they had made on that difficult yet blessed day in the century-old St. Paul Church. Their love had survived lies, misunderstandings, wounded pride and fear. Now it was even stronger, tempered by tears, strengthened by understanding, and blessed by the family they had built together. Mrs. Grace, watching the scene from afar, smiled and whispered a prayer of gratitude. She had lost her family years ago, but fate had given her a new one, and what a wonderful family it was. That night, after the children went to bed, and Mr. Edward returned to his house, just 2 blocks away, Emily and Michael sat on the porch to talk as they did every evening. "Michael, do you regret anything?" she asked suddenly. "Why are you asking that?" "Just curious. Sometimes I wonder if our story could have been different, easier." Michael thought for a moment. "You know what I think? I think our story is perfect just the way it is, with all the hardships, all the mistakes, all the tears, because all of that is what brought us here." "You're right. And you? Do you regret anything?" "Just one thing." "What?" "Not trusting you from the beginning, not realizing you loved me so much you'd move mountains to help me. But you realized it at the right time, and that's what matters." That night, they fell asleep holding hands, as they had every night since their wedding. And Emily drifted off thinking about how life has strange ways of teaching us about love, forgiveness, and family. 5 years had passed since that day in the church. Now, whenever Emily tells the story to her friends, she always ends by saying, "Sometimes you have to lose something to gain something much better, I lost a house, but I gained a family. I lost my pride, but I gained humility. I almost lost the love of my life, but in the end I gained an even stronger love. And Michael, when he tells the story to his friends, always says, "True love isn't the kind that never faces problems. It's the kind that faces every problem and still chooses to keep loving." Grandma Grace's house remains a home full of love. The children grow up hearing family stories, learning about forgiveness, understanding, and how love always finds a way to win. And every time they pass by St. Paul Church, Emily and Michael remember that day that changed everything. The day they almost lost each other, but which ended up being the day they discovered how much they truly loved one another. Mrs. Grace, now 80 years old, remains a constant presence in the family. She's the one who watches the children when Emily and Michael need to go out, the one who teaches the family recipes, and the one who tells the most beautiful bedtime stories. And sometimes, when she's alone in the blue house she bought years ago, she gazes at a photo of her old friend Grace Sullivan and whispers, "Thank you, my friend. Thank you for giving me this beautiful family through your granddaughter. I know you're happy wherever you are." The end of the story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story of love, forgiveness, and family? Do you believe Emily made the right choice by selling the house to save her father? And Michael, did he react the right way upon discovering the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to leave a like if this story touched your heart, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories like this one. Thank you for joining us.